If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The fields of colors bleeding and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. Does substance stand for something? You keep speaking easy, you really do believe me. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. If I could have the heart to take a knife to my skin, I'd carve your name for comfort, a feeling there of some sort. It's been a small eternity tormenting within, so hard to keep it inside. My mouth waits for the surprise, staring out my window at a bird on the line. I wish I could get cable, I wish that I was able to filter all the brainwaves that will enter my mind. If I didn't have to see it, I just don't think I need it. If I was pierced, I'd bleed it. Faster is the placement to fill your mental basement. Enough room for your demons, the catalyst with semen. I'm sorry if I frighten, but you're someone I confide in. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. I'll never ever see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Baby's got a burger and a sugar and that shake is all go down. Baby's got a burger and a sugar and that shake is all go down. Corrosion, corrosion to her thighs, erosion, erosion of her pride. Baby's got sugar, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Yo, 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 yo. It is I, Letterman, back from a little hiatus, partially because of technical difficulties, partially because of physical difficulties, and mostly, partly because of, did I say parsley? Partly because of mental problems, which I'm pretty sure we all have to some degree. Good morning to you. Needless to say, we're back here doing Morning Extra. I am your host, Uncle Warren, and it's Friday. We are now into September. And yes, it is a crazy time as hurricanes are starting to kick up in the Atlantic and in the Pacific, mostly in the Pacific. We'll tell you about that a little bit later. Just want to shout out with first off everybody in the chat here on YouTube. We got Willie Bragg in the house. Willie says he's going to have Red State Update as his guests on Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to check that out. That's on YouTube. There, I think are you still on Twitch too, Willie? But he'll be definitely on YouTube for that 9:30 Eastern. On the Willie Bragg Show, Red State Update. Couple of good old boys. Willie's Southern, I'm Southern. You know, we know how to talk the language to our Southern folks, right? You know, you just can't go up to them and say, read theory. You know, they're going to tell you, what theory? But if you tell them, like, you know what, shit's too expensive, you know, especially like, medical care, you know, we could have free medical care if you wanted it, but you keep voting for these dumbasses that don't want it. So stop doing that. So wait a minute, this thing. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, there we go. CBC voter, good to see you. Have fun on CBC. The Canada Prime Minister is lying. Oh, all right. Sky blue, water wet too, right? We'll see you later. Their Prime Minister Carney up there in Canada. Miss Lainey P, good to see you, Lainey. Don't forget we have Twitch. What did I say? I say Twitch too? Okay, Twitch too. All right. Lainey and I will be starting a brand new show. If you like Civically Minded, when she was doing that, you'll love The Undercurrent, where we go balls deep into the ocean and go swimming looking for undersea. I was putting this show together, me and Lady you were talking about, we came up with a format and all this stuff, and everything's good, and I've been building graphics for the show, and it's a sea theme, because it's the undercurrent, right? So it's a sea theme. So I feel like I'm at a Red Lobster or a Captain D's at sometimes. Pittsburgh dude, what's up? Good to see you, my friend. Willie says red state are ideologically one of us in spite of being Southern. Right, exactly. Willie, everybody thinks everybody down south is just like Trump people, and it's like, nope. That red state update, yeah, thanks, Willie. Yeah, that's not true. There are a lot of very smart people with critical thinking skills down south. It's just they're drowned out by all these idiots, that either use religion or politics to try to control people, and It's sad, but we're chipping away. Willie and I and our southern friends that are trying to do good things. We're trying to chip away. Who else we got? We got Kate here, Kamashwari Kate. Good to see you. Good morning, dear, over there on the West Coast in Canada. We got Kieran. Kieran, good to see you. Morning, missing maestro malcontents a mingling. Captain Alliteration to the rescue. And all our lurkers. We don't have anybody on Rumble yet. And I don't know. Facebook's always a mystery. Let's see if there's anybody watching on Facebook. Is there? Not yet. Facebook is like the TV at the airport. It's on, but you just kind of catch a glimpse every once in a while. So it's okay. It kills time till your plane arrives so you can take off. Before we get to the bad news, and it's always bad news here at the show, we like to make sure that we get our money around here. I love money. I love it. I'd make a suit out of it and be Money Man. I'd be a criminal for Batman if I could. But in lieu of that, I'm selling shitty coffee for you. It's Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast Ground Coffee, used by deep state assassins to dissolve the bodies of their victims. This concoction of rusty nails, dog piss, and Zima will have you reconsidering those bath salts your crackhead neighbor offered you the other day. Its unmistaken aroma of Mississippi landfill in August makes this blend great for warding off wild animals and evil spirits, and let's just say any living organism, and probably some non-living organisms. Its unmistaken aroma. Oh yeah, I already did that. Did money kick your ass and fuck your girlfriend? Do you have a death wish so violent that even destroying your balls in a meat grinder filled with hot sauce seems rather tame in comparison? Well, grab a bag of Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast Ground Coffee, found online and wherever Hardlands Media is holding their liquidation sale this year. And remember, use promo code GRIFTER to pay an additional 20% off, because you know you want to do it. You hate money. Throw it away. All right, enough of that nonsense. Get a little sip. We have 30 stories today. 30. Baked in, long-groomed government sacks goon. Yeah. Canada is going to build a new green economy. First, the forests have to be removed. I know, right? Bumps. Oh, the irony. Our green economy means getting rid of the green stuff. When I think of a green economy, I'm thinking of weed. I'm thinking about growing some sweet herb. You get that, and it's all sticky too. You just you roll it in your fingers. You're like, it's so sticky. I don't want to waste nothing. Sorry. I like weed. I'm not going to lie. All right, let's get, might as well get to the bad news. This earthquake in Afghanistan the other day, and wow, boy, it was a 6 point something on the Richter scale. We'll get into it in a second, but 2,200 people dead. As death toll from the Afghan earthquake jumps as aid agencies plead for funds. This is where USAID comes in, and they've cut those funds. So, hundreds more bodies have been recovered from houses in mountain villages destroyed by a major earthquake in Afghanistan earlier this week, pushing the death toll to over 2,200, a Taliban government spokesman said yesterday. The shallow 6.0 magnitude quake struck the mountainous and remote eastern part of the country late Sunday, leveling villages and trapping people under rubble. So when they say the shallow, the deeper that the epicenter is, hang on a second, sorry. The deeper the epicenter is, the less you're going to get shaking up at the top. But since this was pretty shallow, it doesn't say how deep it was, but yeah, it's going to do some damage. Most of the casualties have been in Kunar province, where people typically live in wood and mud brick houses along steep river valleys separated by high mountains. Some 98% of the buildings in the province were damaged or destroyed, according to an assessment issued yesterday by the Islamic Relief Charity. Aid agencies said they were sorely in need of staff and supplies to attend to the region's survivors. Mohammed Israel said the quake unleashed a landslide that buried his home, livestock, and belongings in Kunar. All the rocks came down from the mountain, he said. I barely got my children out of there. The earthquake jolts are still happening. It's impossible to live there. Late Thursday, a 5.6 magnitude quake rattled Jalalabad in Nangara province, which is south of the hardest hit Kunar province. Though there were no immediate reports of casualties or damages, Israel was staying at a UN medical camp in Nergal, one of the worst affected districts of Kunar. The situation is also bad for us here. We don't have shelter and are living under open skies, he said. Previous estimates said some 1,400 people were killed. Taliban spokesman Hamdullah Fitrat said yesterday that the updated death toll was 2,205 and that search and rescue efforts were continuing. Tents have been set up for people and the delivery of first aid and emergency supplies is ongoing. Fitrat said the rough terrain is hindering relief efforts. Taliban authorities have deployed helicopters and airdropped many commandos to help survivors. Aid workers have reported walking for hours to reach villages cut off by landslides and rockfall. Ooh, hello. We don't need you there. Funding cuts are also having an impact on the response. The Norwegian Refugee Council said it had fewer than 450 staff in Afghanistan, whereas it had 1,100 in 2023, the date of the last major quake in the country. The council only had one warehouse remaining and no emergency stock. We will need to purchase items once we get the funding, but this will take potentially weeks, and people are in need now, said Maisam Shafia, the communications and advocacy advisor for the council in Afghanistan. We have only $100,000 available to support emergency response efforts. This leaves an immediate funding gap of $1.9 million, Shafia said, or Shafi. Dr. Shamshar Khan, who was attending the injured at the UN camp in Nergal, said his own condition had deteriorated after seeing the suffering of others. Neither of these medicines are enough, nor these services, he said. These people need more medicine and tents. They need food and clean drinking water. The people are in great pain. Qatar's Minister of State for International Cooperation, Mariam bint al-bin Nasser al-Misnad, damn, why you gotta have so many names, arrived in Kabul on Wednesday to oversee the delivery of aid to earthquake victims. She is the first female minister to visit Afghanistan on a humanitarian mission since the Taliban seized power in 2021. And the first high-ranking foreign official to travel there since the quake. Aid organizations described the latest disaster as a crisis within a crisis. Afghanistan was already struggling with drought, a weak economy, and the recent return of some 2 million Afghans from neighboring countries. So, positive vibes to those people out there in Afghanistan. I don't know if you've ever been in a earthquake before. I have never been in one myself. I know people who have, and they say out in California, when you had there was 2 major earthquakes. Well, I know a friend of mine who went through both of them. But we're talking about Afghanistan, where the infrastructure of these homes is lacking, to say the least. And now you see over 2,200 people. It's probably, the death toll is probably going to rise higher than that too, unfortunately. So I don't say thoughts and prayers, but I do think positive vibes can't hurt at all. So meanwhile, you've heard Yemen's, I believe their prime minister has been killed. And so, Yemen's going to Yemen. They're like, okay, this is what you want. Here we go. Israel's defense minister again threatens to unleash biblical plagues on Yemen. Israel Katz made the comments as the Houthis have continued their attacks on Israel following the assassination of the Yemeni prime minister. What is this? Okay. Israeli defense minister Israel Katz yesterday repeated a threat to unleash biblical plagues on Yemen in response to Houthi attacks on Israel, which have continued following the Israeli assassination of the prime minister of the Sana'a-based government. The Houthis are firing missiles at Israel again, a plague of darkness, a plague of the firstborn. We will complete all 10 plagues, Katz wrote on X, referring to plagues brought upon Egypt in the book of Exodus. That's a bit much, don't you think? Katz has previously used the plague of darkness in apparent reference to Israel's strikes on Yemeni power plants and other energy infrastructure. He also referenced the plague of the firstborn, which resulted in the deaths of all firstborn males in Egypt in Exodus in the Bible, when announcing the Israeli strikes that targeted Yemeni civilian leadership and killed Prime Minister Ahmed al-Rahawi. Look at that. Those are the 2 worst action figures you can get at Toys R Us right there. That's just terrible. Yemeni's Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah, announced another missile attack on Israel yesterday and repeated their vow that the operations in support of the Palestinians in Gaza will continue until there's a ceasefire and an end to the blockade on the Palestinian territory. What's up, Steve? Good morning to you, brother. The suffering of our oppressed Palestinian people in Gaza makes it imperative for all peoples to take action and break all restrictions in fulfillment of their religious, moral, and humanitarian duty to end this unprecedented crime in our contemporary history. Everyone bears responsibility, and their duty will not be done until it is fulfilled, said Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree. Yemenis will continue to support Gaza until the aggression against it stops and the siege is lifted. Saree also said the missile targeted Israel's Ben Gurion airport and claimed that it reached its target and that U.S. and Israeli air defenses failed to intercept it. Much earlier in the day, the Israeli military said a missile fired from Yemen landed in an open area outside of Israeli territory, but it's unclear if it was the same one announced by Saree. The IDF claimed later in the day that its forces intercepted 2 drones fired from Yemen. The Houthis are known for their resilience and did not back down in the face of a very heavy U.S. bombing campaign that the Trump administration conducted from March 15th to May 6th, which killed more than 250 civilians. Because that's what we do. We kill civilians. We're down for it. You know what I mean? We're the West. The West is the best at killing kids. The U.S. gave up on trying to get the Houthis to stop their attacks on Israel and their blockade of Israeli shipping and agreed to a ceasefire with the group. They said, chicken in a bucket, fuck it. We can't take these people. It's like, does this smell like Vietnam to you? That's what Yemen is. If they ever decide to do a ground, they would have to bomb it from the air, because if they try to go into Yemen, yeah, that's a wrap. Meanwhile, the Israeli military claims it controls 40% of Gaza City. The Israeli military said that its forces already control 40% of Gaza City as it continues its heavy bombardment and ground offensive in the city, where famine is taking place, according to the UN and U.S.-backed hunger monitors. While the IDF has been building up its plans for a major offensive on Gaza City, its forces have been on the offensive since about August 10th. The first part of the offensive primarily targeted the Zeytun neighborhood, which was reduced to ruins within just a few weeks. Israel's offensive has expanded to other neighborhoods, and there have been reports of the IDF using tanks, explosive-laden armored vehicles, and grenades dropped from drones to destroy homes and tents. Middle East Eye reported on Thursday that Dr. Munir al-Bursh, Director General of Gaza's Health Ministry, said that at least 1,100 Palestinians have been killed and 6,000 wounded over just the past 20 days. The Israeli military's plans involve forcibly displacing 1 million Palestinians from Gaza City, and it estimates that about 70,000 residents have fled so far. According to the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, the IDF expects 200,000 civilians to remain in the city despite the threat to their lives. We'll tell you more about that in a second. The report also said that the IDF has been firing artillery into unpopulated areas to pressure civilians to leave. Unpopulated areas, quote unquote. If it's unpopulated, that means there's nobody in there. Dumbasses. Palestinians are hesitant to leave for a number of reasons, including the fact that many are malnourished and may not be able to survive another forced displacement. Palestinians also don't believe they'll ever be able to return once they leave, since Israeli officials have made clear that their ultimate goal is the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. The IDF's plans also involve razing the entire city to the ground once it's fully captured. So, the new Israeli map proposing to annex 80% of the West Bank has been explained. This is from Mondo Ice. See here, make that a little bigger. There we go. This motherfucker. More than 80% of the occupied West Bank would become part of Israel, according to a new annexation proposal drafted by Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. On Monday, the hardline minister presented a map showing all of the West Bank as a part of Israel, including Bethlehem, the Jordan Valley, and the entire Palestinian countryside, which only 6 Palestinian cities, Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus, Jericho, Ramallah, and Hebron, were marked as isolated ghettos. Smotrich said that if the Palestinian Authority opposes his plan, Israel would uproot it like it did with Hamas. So much for peace. Smotrich also called on Netanyahu to implement his proposal if he wished to enter history as a great leader. They misspelled genocider. I don't know. They should get a dictionary or something. Although the dictionary says that, vaccines treat symptoms and they're not supposed to prevent. Anyway, so this is the, maybe make this a little small. So this is the map right here. Map presented by Israeli parts of the West Bank, illustrates the remaining parts of the West Bank highlighted in yellow, so these areas right here, reflecting his plan to annex occupied West Bank to Israel. Now we can go back, can't we? We did that. On the same day as Smotrich's presentation, Israeli forces arrested the mayor of Hebron, Taysir Abu Snina. Hebron is the largest Palestinian city in the West Bank and is home to 800,000 Palestinians. Some 500 Messianic Israeli settlers have been imposing their presence in the city's old town since the 1980s, and Abu Snina, I'm going to call that Snina, is known for his role in a Fatah cell that planned and carried out the shooting of 6 Israeli and Jewish settlers in the city's old town in 1980, locally known as the Dabuya operation. After his initial arrest, Abu Snina, that name is killing me, was later released in a prisoner swap in 1983 alongside other members of the cell. His arrest came days after Israeli media outlets reported that Bibi was considering the establishment of a tribal emirate in Hebron, separate from the Palestinian Authority, which first surfaced in the pages of the Wall Street Journal last July. Local Palestinian media speculated as to whether his arrest was possibly a prelude to removing potential sources of local opposition to annexation, especially given his background and his status as a consequential local nationalist figure in Hebron. These events, in addition to a number of other developments in the lead up to the Smotrich proposal, have catapulted the issue of Israel's potential annexation of the West Bank to the top of the Israeli government's agenda and have left millions of Palestinians in the West Bank unsure of their future. The Israeli cabinet met last Sunday for the second time in 2 weeks to discuss options for the annexation of parts of the West Bank. It was followed by a meeting between Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar and U.S. Secretary of State Aquaman last week, in which Sa'ar informed Aquaman of Israel's intention to impose Israeli sovereignty on the Palestinian territory, according to the Israeli news site Walla. Meanwhile, Israel has been engaging in a show of force against the Palestinian Authority by launching several raids on major West Bank cities that make up Area A under the Oslo Accords, which comprise about 18% of the West Bank and are supposed to be under PA jurisdiction. That's Palestinian Authority. The Israeli army launched the largest military raid in years on Ramallah last week, occupying the city center of the PA's de facto capital with hundreds of troops accompanied by Israeli media crews, of course, the propaganda office, for over 3 hours. The very next day, the Israeli army launched a similar raid in Nablus, the second most important PA center of power. Although Israel claims that its latest moves to annex the West Bank are a response to the announcement by several European states that they intend to recognize Palestine as a state, Israel's annexation of the West Bank has been years in the making. What's up, Max? Good to see you. Good morning, brother. In 2019, Bibi pledged during his election campaign to annex the Jordan Valley. The first Trump administration allegedly stopped Israel twice in January and June of 2020 from formally announcing annexation. However, the same Trump administration announced its deal of the century plan in 2020, which included the annexation of most of the West Bank, including all of the Jordan Valley. Trump also recognized Israel's sovereignty over illegal settlements in the West Bank, the occupied Syrian Golan Heights, and over all of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Palestinians overwhelmingly rejected it. Israel's current plan of annexation is based on Smotrich's 2015 decisive plan, which aims to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state and expel Palestinians through encouraging so-called voluntary migration, which is bullshit. Smotrich also said that Palestinians in the West Bank would either submit to Israeli sovereignty, leave the country, or, quote, be dealt with, quote, by Israeli forces. I'm pretty sure the third option is the only option. After October 7th, Smotrich said that the annexation of the West Bank should be Israel's response to the Hamas attack. He later said that Israel's expulsion of half of Gaza's population would set a precedent to do the same in the West Bank. Over the 2 years, Smotrich has been leading a campaign of financial strangulation against the PA, pirating Palestinian customs money that Israel collects on the PA's behalf, as per the Oslo Accords. Smotrich has also periodically threatened to ban Israeli banks from dealing with Palestinian banks, and in the meantime has compelled Israeli banks to limit the amount of cash that Palestinian banks can transfer to Israeli banks. Let's say banks again. Both of the above measured have forced the PA into an ongoing financial crisis, unable to pay public functionaries, medics, teachers, and security staff their full monthly salaries for a month on end. And if Smotrich goes through with actually banning all financial dealings between Israel and Palestinian banks, it would spell total financial collapse in the West Bank, threatening the PA's very existence. And that's pretty much what they're trying to do. Weakening the PA to this level is meant to obviate its needs for Palestinians and to pave the way for annexation. And Smotrich is just the face of this recent push to isolate the besieged and besiege the PA. He's one of many Israeli ministers key to the continuity of Netanyahu's government, including Itamar Ben-Gvir, Amichai Eliyahu, and and Orit Strak, all of whom represent the religious right and control the majority in Israeli Knesset. The only democracy in the Middle East, y'all. There it is. Knesset has also been laying the legal grounds for the West Bank's annexation for years. In 2018, the Knesset passed the Israeli nation-state law, which states that the only right to self-determination between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea belongs to the Jewish people. In July of last year, the Knesset passed a bill rejecting the establishment of a Palestinian state anywhere between the river and the sea, and a year later, last July, the Knesset passed a bill enabling the annexation of the West Bank. So what's U.S. roles in this? The prelude to the official annexation of the Palestinian territory isn't limited to Israeli measures, but also includes what are so far symbolic U.S. moves underwriting Israel's intentions. As European states, including France, the UK, and Belgium, announced plans to recognize a Palestinian state during the UN General Assembly later this month, I believe that's on the 22nd. The U.S., for its part, revoked visas for Palestinian officials, including the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, set to attend the General Assembly. The move was followed by Washington's decision to stop issuing visas to any Palestinian passport holders. So they figured to keep them away. Then people will they still recognize Palestine? The whole recognition of Palestine by these countries, it just seems very symbolic at very best. Hello. In essence, this means that the U.S. is implicitly supporting Israel's plans to erase the possibility of a Palestinian state and extending Israel's control over all Palestinian territories. Although Smotrich's most recent plan has been described as maximalist, the general orientation of Israeli lawmakers, even the, quote, pragmatic, quote, opposition represented by Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz, does not oppose annexation in any meaningful sense. So even their more moderate people in the Knesset are right-wing assholes. The main differences that do exist between Israelis is not over annexation per se, but over its extent. The less maximalist Israeli lawmakers either call for the annexation of all Israeli settlements, the annexation of Area C, which makes up over 60% of the West Bank, or the annexation of the Jordan Valley, but all those versions would deprive Palestinians of any meaningful geographic continuity, control over natural resources and borders, or prospects for future population growth. Again, there we are. Annie Thomas, hello. No, don't go to Moscow. I wasn't planning on it, but there is a Moscow in Mississippi, I think. I've never been there either. I hear it's very communist. I'm kidding. It's probably not. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. In essence, the entire Israeli political class is dead set on making a Palestinian state an impossibility. This is the range of political currents the U.S. is picking between to support. Ultimately, the U.S. will be the one to decide whether official annexation as a whole will move forward. Axios quoted two unnamed U.S. officials that it was unlikely Trump would support such a move. But even if Washington halts the de jure annexation of West Bank, it will most likely offer an alternative that would solidify de facto annexation. So that is from Mondoweiss there, talking about what's going on. And the Palestinian Authority, I'm sorry, they've been trying to make peace and trying to, appease, not really appease Israel, but just try to do this diplomatic thing. And it's like, nah, bro, it's time to start watering that tree of liberty, if you know what I mean. And that's what they've been doing. And that's why Hamas are called terrorists, because they're terrorizing capitalism and genocide. So, as we told you before, thousands of Palestinians have defied evacuation orders amid Israeli bombardment. Israeli bombardment pushed more Palestinians out of their homes in Gaza City yesterday, while thousands of residents defied Israeli orders to leave, remaining behind in the ruins in the path of Israel's latest advance. Gaza health authorities said Israeli fire across the enclave had killed at least 28 people yesterday, most of them in Gaza City, where Israeli forces have advanced through the outer suburbs and are now a few kilometers from the city center. Israel launched the offensive in Gaza on August 10th in what Netanyahu says is a plan to defeat Hamas militants. Genocide. Excuse me. once and for all in the part of Gaza where Israeli troops fought most heavily in the war's initial phase. The campaign has prompted international criticism because of its dire humanitarian crisis in the area and has provoked unusual expressions of concern within Israel, including accounts of tension over strategy between some military commanders and political leaders. This time, I am not leaving my house. I want to die here. It doesn't matter if we move out or stay. Tens of thousands of those who left their homes were killed by Israel too, so why bother? Nader, a mother of 5 from Gaza City, told Reuters via text message. Residents said Israel bombarded Gaza City's Zitoun, Sabra, and Shijaya districts from ground and air. Tanks pushed into the eastern part of the Sheikh Radwan district northwest of the city center, destroying houses and causing fires. In tent encampments. It's always those goddamn tents. My motherfucking tents. There was no immediate Israeli comment on those reports. The Israeli military said it is operating on the outskirts of the city to dismantle militants' tunnels and locate weapons. Much of Gaza City was laid to waste in the war's initial weeks in October and November of 2023. About 1 million people lived there before the war, and hundreds of thousands are believed to have returned to live among the ruins, especially since Israel ordered people out of other areas and launched offensives elsewhere. So they're like, where are we going to go? You want us to leave? We'll probably get killed over there too. Might as well die here at the house. Israel, which has now told civilians to leave Gaza City again for their safety, says 70,000 have done so heading south. Palestinian officials say less than half that number have left, and many thousands are still in the path of Israel's advance. Displacement could further endanger those most vulnerable, including, of course, children who are suffering from malnutrition, said Amjad al-Shawa, the head of the Palestinian NGOs network, an umbrella group Palestinian NGOs that coordinates with the UN and international humanitarian agencies. This is going to be the most dangerous displacement since the war started, said Shawa. People's refusal to leave despite the bombardment and the killing is a sign that they have lost faith. Palestinian and UN officials say there is no safe place in Gaza, including areas Israel designates as humanitarian zones. The damn sure ain't safe at those aid sites, that's for sure. The war has caused a humanitarian crisis across the territory. Health officials in Gaza say 370 people, including 131 children, have so far died of malnutrition and starvation caused by acute food shortages. Excuse me. Most in recent weeks. Israel said it's taking measures to improve the humanitarian condition in Gaza, including increasing aid into the enclave. Right. Yeah. What kind of aid? The war began on October 7th, 2023, when gunmen led by Hamas attacked southern Israel, killing some 1,200 people. Well, 1,200 people were killed. It's more than likely because of the Hannibal Initiative that it was Israel who killed the majority of those people, most of them civilians, and taking 251 hostages into Gaza. And there are the numbers there. Israel's offensives killed more than 63,000, but we know that number is way, 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 way high. Prospects for a ceasefire and a deal to release the remaining 48 hostages, 20 of whom are thought to still be alive, appear dim. Protests in Israel calling to end the war and reach a deal to release the hostages have intensified in the past few weeks. Yeah, so, and there's some people trying to get out of there in the microbus. I mean, it's just insane what's going on over there, and why it's being allowed to happen. Hello. There we go. So Israel escalates attacks on displacement tents in Gaza City. As we said, those tents always have the bullseyes on them because Israel only deals with killing women and children and tents, apparently. Israel launched another night of deadly bombardment on Gaza City Thursday with strikes targeting tents sheltering internally displaced Palestinians, killing several children and wounding others. As of 15:30 local time, I believe that's 3:30 local time, at least 50 Palestinians had been killed, according to health officials. One of the strikes hit a makeshift camp in the Al Nasser neighborhood west of Gaza City, setting several tents ablaze. It is the latest in a wave of escalating attacks on camps housing displaced Palestinians in Gaza City, which has come under intensified Israeli bombardment in recent days, amid reported plans to occupy the city and forcibly displace its Palestinian population. So basically the race is on. They're trying to get Gaza and the West Bank on lockdown before the UN council meets, and these countries allegedly are going to pledge they recognize Palestine as a state. Recent assaults have included armed quadcopters dropping incendiary bombs on makeshift shelters late at night, sparking fires and widespread panic. According to Dr. Munir al-Bursh, Director General of the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza, so, yeah, we said this before, 1,100 Palestinians killed, 6,000 wounded in Gaza City over the past 20 days. Al-Bursh accused Israel of deceiving the media by claiming it has yet to launch a full-scale assault on Gaza City, which in reality tens of thousands have already been forcibly expelled and hundreds of residential buildings flattened in areas including Jabalia al-Nazla, Sheikh Radwan al-Zaytun, and al-Sabra. He also said the only medical center serving the area has been burned down by Israeli forces because, of course, that's what they fucking do. The growing attacks come as nearly 1 million Palestinians in Gaza City continue to suffer under an Israeli-imposed famine. 3 more deaths caused by malnutrition were recorded in the past 24 hours, and that totals up to 370, as we said, including 131 children. Elsewhere, Hamas released a statement late on Wednesday, reaffirming its acceptance of a ceasefire proposal presented on August 18th, which was nearly identical to terms previously demanded by Israel. The group added that it has yet to receive a response from the Israeli side via mediators. The movement reaffirms its readiness to move forward with a comprehensive deal, the statement said. Netanyahu's office responded swiftly, dismissing the announcement. Unfortunately, this is more spin by Hamas that contains nothing new, the statement read. You probably read it like that, too. Netanyahu reiterated his revised conditions for ending the war, which include the release of all hostages, Hamas's disarmament, and the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, and continued Israeli security control over the territory. I doubt Hamas is going to disarm, particularly because Israel is trying to destroy the Palestinian Authority. So why the fuck would they do that? Not a great plan, as Tony Stark said in the Avengers. Meanwhile, speaking of Hamas, they're calling for UN action as Israel escalates brutal bombardment of Gaza. So this was on Wednesday, I believe. Hamas has urged the UN and the wider international community to intervene immediately to stop Israel's genocide in Gaza as the Israeli army escalated its brutal assaults on Gaza City and elsewhere in the enclave. At least 73 Palestinians, including several aid seekers, were killed in relentless Israeli bombardments across Gaza on Wednesday, among them 43 in Gaza City alone. Are we still on the air? I think we're still on. Okay. Entire families are being killed together in their tents and shelters as the Israeli forces are targeting densely populated areas in Gaza. My brother was killed, struck inside his room. They killed him with his wife and children. They erased them all. No one is left. Sabrina al-Mabu, a displaced Palestinian, told Al Jazeera. Israeli grenades have also ignited tents at schools, sheltering displaced families in Sheikh Radwan, as we told you. Sheikh Radwan is being turned upside down, resident Zakia Sami said. If the takeover of Gaza City isn't stopped, we might die. We won't forgive anyone who watches this and does nothing. Okay, good. Hey, Nahila, what's up? Good morning, friend. I hope you're doing well. Gaza's media office says Israel has detonated at least 100 explosive-laden robots in Gaza City over the past 3 weeks to destroy entire residential blocks and neighborhoods. And there are the numbers there. Since August 13th. Al Jazeera's Hani Mahmoud, reporting from Gaza City, described the situation as apocalyptic. It feels endless and all-consuming. Entire neighborhoods are being erased block by block. He said people are losing everything they built over decades. For many, this feels like a living nightmare. Yeah, Hamas has urged the international community to intervene immediately. That answers the question of what they want China to do, right? So people are losing everything they built over decades. For many, this feels like a living nightmare. In a statement on Wednesday, Hamas reiterated its readiness to accept a comprehensive Gaza ceasefire and release all the captives in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. And then there's no more numbers there. Hamas also slammed Israel for committing horrific war crimes with a strike on the Al-Jarisi family home in northern Gaza City, which killed at least 10, calling it part of a systematic campaign to destroy Palestinian life. Indeed. We're going to do that? There we go. Meanwhile, the flotilla is underway. Global Sumud flotilla sets sail from Menorca towards Gaza despite Israeli threats. I think they had to turn back for some reason, but then they're back on track. The Global Sumud, and if I'm mispronouncing that, please let me know. The Global Sumud flotilla departed Menorca and is advancing towards Tunisia as part of its mission to break the Israeli blockade on Gaza, deliver humanitarian aid, and draw global attention to the plight of Palestinians. Organizers announced Friday. That would be today. The coalition said most vessels are now en route to Tunis, while additional boats, including 2 undergoing storm-related repairs in Barcelona, are preparing to rejoin the fleet. Safety checks and operational protocols are being carried out ahead of the next leg of the voyage. On September 7th, dozens of vessels are expected to set sail from the ports of Catania in Sicily and Tunis, joining the Barcelona fleet in what organizers described as a powerful united action to challenge Israel's blockade. The flotilla has received broad international support from lawmakers, unions, and rights advocates. More than 100 current and former elected officials signed a joint letter urging the creation of a humanitarian corridor to Gaza, protection of the civilian mission, and immediate international action to uphold humanitarian law. Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory, said the mission fully complies with international law. Dock workers in the Italian port of Genoa also pledged to block all shipments to Israel if the flotilla is obstructed. Colombian President Gustavo Petro voiced solidarity, telling participants, "You have chosen the most difficult and dangerous path, that of action in the face of brutal violence. From this shore, we send you strength, words, life." See, and that's the Colombian president. You know, if Trump says something like that, he's like, we're going to send some bombs. We're going to send some bombs at you. Boo, 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 boo. Organizers urge the international community and UN bodies to ensure safe passage for the flotilla, protect participants from unlawful detention, and uphold Palestinians' right to humanitarian maritime access. They also demanded an end to Israel's siege on Gaza, calling it part of an ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. The Global Sumud flotilla also said it is not funded by governments or corporations, but sustained by donations from families, communities, and grassroots organizations worldwide. Our coalition brings together doctors, humanitarians, activists, lawyers, artists, and everyday people united by a shared belief that Palestinians deserve to live with dignity, freedom, and humanity, the statement said. The ongoing genocide in Gaza has entered its 700th day on Friday today, so this is the 700th day of this, with Israel having killed more than 64,000 people. And much, much more than that. And this time they're doing it right, I think, with the flotilla. I think, not throwing shade on the 2 previous attempts in recent times, but if you're going to bring aid to Gaza, bring the fleet, all right? Bring the fucking fleet. Don't bring one boat, because, they just come out there with their little drones and then board you, and that's it. I'm not quite sure how many boats are in this flotilla. If you guys know in the chat, let me know. It's several boats, so there's a whole lot of them that are headed that way. And more power to them. I don't know what it's going to do, but if it does something, I mean, one boat led to another boat, and then that boat led to a whole fleet of boats that's coming. So maybe the momentum from that can do something, because this is how you're going to stop shit like this, is people power. Governments ain't going to do dick. The law ain't going to do dick. It's up to the people. It's up to the people. And now the U.S. is targeting Turkey over Hamas. U.S. lawmakers target Turkey over Hamas. I just said that. And F-35s clash with Trump administration. He's this guy right here. I thought he was dead. You know, somebody said he was dead. What happened to his hand? He's not showing his other hand because it's got the... You know what I'm saying. You know the thing. U.S. lawmakers are aiming to ban arms sales to Turkey with a series of new amendments in the 2026 NDA. That's the National Defense Authorization Act. That's the one I think is the ones that gives you the $1 trillion military budget, if you're into that sort of thing. If the amendments become law, they would preclude the transfer of arms to Turkey, including F-35s, over previous topics, including Congress's criticism of Ankara for violations of Greek airspace, its possession of the Russian S-400 air defense system, and its occupation of northern Cyprus. Some lawmakers have made Turkey's relationship with Hamas a priority. One of the amendments introduced by Republican Gus Bilirakis and Democrat Bad Schneider. Look at that. Bipartisan fuckery at its finest. Would prohibit the sale of F-35s to Turkey unless the White House certifies that Ankara is not, quote, materially supporting Hamas or any of its affiliates. The amendment, if it becomes law, would also require the administration to certify that Turkey is not engaging in military threats to Israel. Stop making fun of my girlfriend. Or engaging in military cooperation, including drone sales to Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. A separate amendment by a group of Republican and Democratic lawmakers would require the state, defense, and treasury departments to file in-depth investigations into any of Turkey's alleged ties to Hamas. There we are. There we are. In a while, crocodile. To you too. See you later, alligator. It asks for Congress to be informed whether Turkey is harboring members of or the financial assets of Hamas, its affiliates, or other designated foreign terrorist organizations, and whether Hamas officials are present in Turkey or operating in its territory or areas under its effective control. The raft of amendments seeking to tie arms sales to Turkey over Gaza and Israel underscores how the U.S.'s NATO ally and Israel are increasingly at odds, especially over Syria, where Turkey has emerged as the main military backer of Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara. Middle East Eye revealed earlier this year that Netanyahu had been lobbying U.S. Secretary Aquaman to block the sale of F-35 warplanes. Please make sure they do not get the F-35s, Aquaman. I call him Aquaman because he did that fucking State of the Union response. And remember, he got the dry mouth. He had to reach down and grab the water. Origin story. Critics of Turkey in Congress have long accused it of funding and backing Hamas, which is labeled a U.S. terror organization. Hamas's military and political wings are structured as distinct entities. The group's political leadership was based in Damascus, Syria, until 2012, when it fell out with the Syrian government over the country's civil war. Qatar agreed to host the exiled leadership in response to a 2011 request from former U.S. President Barack Obama. You can take these, Qatar, why don't you take these exiled leaders? I don't do a good Obama impression, I'm sorry. Hamas also had an office in Cairo, Egypt, although it is unclear whether that office is still functioning following the October 7, 2023 attacks. Hamas political officials are known to spend time in Turkey and have publicly met with Turkish officials, including President Erdogan there. The lawmakers' amendments contrast with the Trump administration's view of Turkey's ties to Hamas. The U.S. has used Turkey and Qatar as a back channel to the group. The NDAA amendments contradict how Middle East envoy and U.S. ambassador to Turkey, Tom Barak, has framed Turkey's ties to Hamas. They've actually really helped us in having a point of conversation with Hamas, although they get criticized for it. Barak said in July, the Trump administration broke precedent by meeting directly with Hamas in Qatar earlier this year. More recently, diplomacy in the Middle East has suggested that U.S. and European officials are open to sidestepping their own country's specific terror designations on an ad hoc basis. Well, that's just Trump in a nutshell. He is Captain Ad Hoc. He just does whatever the fuck he wants. The U.S.'s top diplomat in the Middle East during the Biden administration met directly with Syrian President Sharaa before the terror label on HTS was removed by the Trump administration. The tussle between Turkey and the U.S. over F-35s goes back much further to 2019 when Ankara purchased Russian S-400 missile system, Russia's S-400 missile system, and was ejected from the co-production of the warplane. The following year, the Trump administration slapped sanctions on Turkey. Under U.S. law, Turkey must relinquish possession of the S-400 system to be readmitted into the F-35 program. So you got to give up this good Russian shit for these shitty F-35s. But deploying the S-400 to Syria would likely alarm Israel. You think? Israel has long enjoyed a veto on U.S. arms sales to other Middle Eastern states to ensure it maintains a qualitative military edge in the region. A separate amendment to the NDAA seeks to officially include Turkey in the Arms Export Control Act. Foes of Turkey in Congress were alarmed when Barak said Ankara was being amazingly cooperative with F-35 discussions. Barak also said that Turkey purchased the S-400 following a failed 2016 coup after the U.S. denied Erdogan's request to purchase its U.S. competitor, Patriot air defense batteries. What is that end? A negotiation and a discussion of saying how we can turn back on the clock, Barak said. So, yeah, now Turkey is a wild card over there, too, right? So, you know, they're dealing with Syria. Syria is dealing with getting bombed by Israel, you know, and then you got Lebanon in the mix, too. It's what they call a hot mess, y'all. So, Bibi and Macron apparently are on the outs. As Israel foreign minister says, no Macron visit until France drops Palestinian state recognition. Israel's foreign minister said yesterday that his government would not agree to a visit by French President Emmanuel Macron so long as Paris plans to recognize a Palestinian state. A statement from Israel's foreign ministry said Gideon Sar told France's top diplomat Jean-Noël Barrot in a phone call that there is no room, quote, for a presidential visit, quote, as long as France persists in its initiative and efforts that harm Israel's interests, calling for a Palestinian state. Israel's public broadcaster Khan reported on Wednesday that Prime Minister Bibi had rejected a request by Macron to make a brief visit ahead of the UN General Assembly later this month, where the president plans to formally recognize a Palestinian state. Paris should reconsider its initiative, Foreign Minister Sars told Barrot, arguing that the move would undermine regional stability and harm Israel's national and security interests. National security. That's a dirty phrase. Israel strives for good relations with France, but France must respect the Israeli position when it comes to issues essential to its security and future, Sar said, according to the statement, meaning, we want to get our genocide on, and this Palestinian state's not going to do, so you need to shut the fuck up there, Frenchie. Tensions between France and Israel have flared since Macron and France would formally recognize a Palestinian state. During the UN meeting, several Western governments have announced similar plans. The row escalated last month when Netanyahu accused Macron of fomenting anti-Semitism. There it is. If it ain't Hamas, it's anti-Semitism, or both. with the Elysee hitting back, calling the allegation abject and erroneous. You have to say erroneous with a French accent. Erroneous. By announcing the move to recognize statehood for Palestinians, France is set to join a list of nations that has grown since the start of the Gaza war nearly 2 years ago. Talk about the Streisand effect, right? And everybody knows that October 7th was the, that was all the makings of Israel doing that. They wanted that to happen. So they could say, let's erase Gaza and West Bank and put up shopping malls. Making his announcement in July, Macron said the urgent priority today is to end the war in Gaza. We must finally build the state of Palestine and ensure that it would contribute to the security of all in the Middle East, he wrote on social media, and then he ate a crepe. France is among at least 445 of the 193 UN members that now recognize or plan to recognize a Palestinian state, according to an AFP tally. Wow, 145 of 193. That's nice. But what does it mean? Does it really mean anything? Ho, 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 ho. Fucking Pepe Le Pew looking motherfucker. Sorry. Starting to get a little personal there. Don't mean to. But France is trying to be everybody's buddy, right? Especially Macron. He says 26 countries willing to send troops as U.S. backed a reassurance force for Ukraine. You want to know how you get World War III? This is how you get World War III. Send troops to Ukraine while there's still a war with Russia. Whew. What could go wrong? There you go. French President Emmanuel Macron said yesterday that a number of countries have pledged to provide troops as part of a reassurance force to send to Ukraine after a peace deal was reached, a plan Russia has made clear it would never accept. So they say they're going to send troops after the war to, kind of keep things, cool. Yeah, that's probably, having foreign troops in your country is probably, no. Not good. Macron made the comments alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky after hosting a summit of the so-called Coalition of the Willing. And if that phrase sounds familiar, these were the same Coalition of the Willing that joined the U.S. into going into Iraq. If you remember that. Bush and the Coalition of the Willing. Yeah. Mission accomplished. A group of 35 countries that support Ukraine. He said that 26 countries pledged to provide troops on land, at sea, or in the air, signaling that not all countries are willing to deploy troops on the ground in Ukraine. Smart people. The French leader said that the force does not have the will or the objective of waging war against Russia, but will aim to prevent any new major aggression and to involve the 26 states very clearly in the lasting security of Ukraine. Both he and Zelensky said the U.S. supports the idea, and Trumpy has signaled he's willing to provide air power for the deployment, but has ruled out sending U.S. troops into Ukraine. We'll send a shit ton of drones. Officials told the Washington Post that the U.S. has expressed to its European allies its willingness to provide additional air defenses, including assistance in enforcing a no-fly zone, as well as intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. One U.S. official told the Post that the American role in the deployment was yet to be determined. There is a difference between offer and agree, the official said. That's the president's call. He has not made any decision yet. The insistence on putting troops from NATO countries on the ground in Ukraine could end up sinking the peace process, as Moscow has repeatedly rejected the possibility and said it must be involved in any talks about security guarantees for Ukraine. Russia is not going to discuss a foreign intervention in Ukraine in any form or format that is fundamentally unacceptable and undermines any security, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, told reporters, again, letting my personal feelings get in there. I love her. I'm just like, hey, Maria. I don't care if she's a propagandist or not. She's a proper propagandist. Sorry. I'll leave now. And the ass kissing for Ukraine, you can't leave out the UK, right? UK Prime Minister says coalition of the willing could send long-range missiles to Ukraine. A group of Western nations led by the UK and France is planning to further apply pressure on Putin by sending long-range missiles to Ukraine following a meeting of the coalition of willing. I hate that phrase, coalition of the willing. That just sounds like people that were just like, come on, dude, will you do it? I don't want to do it, but I guess I'm willing to do it. Jesus. So the prime minister emphasized that the group had an unbreakable pledge to Ukraine with President Trump's backing, and it was clear they now needed to go even further to apply pressure on Putin to secure a cessation of hostilities. Good luck with that. It continues. The prime minister also welcomed announcements from coalition of the willing partners to supply long-range missiles to Ukraine to further bolster the country's supplies. The coalition of the willing, or COW, I'm going to start calling it COW. The COW is a group of 31 Western countries led by the UK and France with the goal of arming Ukraine in its war against Russia. In recent weeks, Ukraine has attacked energy infrastructure. The State Department recently approved a sale of 3,350 ERAM long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine. While Europe will pay for some of the missiles, the U.S. will also provide funding for the munitions. I thought we stopped buying shit for Ukraine. Trumpy, America first? Well, I'm sorry, Israel first? The COW summit was held in Paris with Ukrainian President Zelensky attending. Emmanuel Macron said attendees at the meeting discussed security guarantees for Ukraine post-war. Collective of the shilling, yeah. Exactly. So Emmanuel Macron said attendees at the meeting discussed security guarantees for Ukraine post-war. The COW has made real progress in Paris. United for Ukraine, we're ready for lasting peace with strong security guarantees. He wrote on the Twitter, there's some French shit there, and there's his picture. There they are. They look like they're handcuffed together, don't they? I know that's a doorknob, but, you know, wishful thinking. Keir Starmer said the group discussed deploying troops to Ukraine once the fighting stops. The coalition engaged in rapid work to ensure a force could deploy in the event of a ceasefire, the readout explained. However, Putin said no dice. He wouldn't agree to any peace deal that includes Western troops deployed to Ukraine. That's the whole point of the shit. When they said they weren't going to get Ukraine to join NATO and all that shit that they lied about. Think what you will about Russia, but Russia ain't stupid. I mean, Putin's not stupid, I don't think. Although he might be, because he's inviting Zelensky to Moscow for direct negotiations. Direct negotiations. Please, Zelensky, come to Mother Russia. I promise you, nothing is wrong with borscht. It's delicious. See, he goes, what? Why? Come on, baby. Come see me. I love doing a Russian accent because then I sound like Count Chocula. Blah. Sorry. Russia's ready to receive Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Moscow for talks to end the war. Russian President Vladimir Putin told reporters at a news conference in Beijing on September 3rd. I believe that's Wednesday. Putin was in China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, which resulted in an agreement to construct a new natural gas pipeline to China. The Russian side sees light at the end of the tunnel regarding a negotiated effort to end the war, but is ready to continue what it calls the special military operation if peace talks fail. Part of Putin's optimism stems from his recent summit with U.S. President Donald Trump in Alaska. Sorry about that. Especially since we can see the mood of the current U.S. administration under Trump, and we see not just their statements, but their sincere desire to find this solution The Russian president stated in Beijing, he's got to be talking shit about Trump because that just does none of that shit's true. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha rejected Putin's proposal for Zelensky to come to the Russian capital while the war rages on as unacceptable, adding that several third-party countries have offered to host peace talks. These are serious proposals, and President Zelensky is ready for such a meeting at any point in time. Yet Putin continues to mess around, Sybiha said in a statement. Mess around? Only increased pressure can force Russia to finally get serious about the peace process, he added. Maybe get the fuck out of Ukraine. You know, stop sending them weapons. That might have something to do. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military continues to suffer from manpower shortages, particularly in its frontline units. I think they were getting like men in their like 60s to fight. Now that the war has dragged on for over 3 years, Ukraine has increasingly been forced to staff its fighting units with older soldiers, including many who have been forcibly conscripted. Kidnapped is the word they're looking for there. The Kiev Independent reported that as of mid-2025, Ukraine's military is gripped by a deep manpower crisis, most acute in the ranks of its infantry due to difficulties in mobilizing new troops or kidnapping people. At the same time, the battlefield itself, the environment in which the Ukrainian infantry must live, survive, and fight, is only getting deadlier by the month. The Ukrainian newspaper highlighted the case of 54-year-old Ukrainian infantryman Ruslan Kalina, who has already spent 146 days in combat on the front line since he volunteered to join the military this January. He was deployed to the front lines in Donetsk, eastern Ukraine, in March, and only left 5 months later. In early August, he spent almost 5 brutal months in a tight dugout under fire almost every day. I'm 56. There ain't no way in fucking hell I could do that shit. And I sure as fuck wouldn't do it for Zelensky. At first, I thought that we would be going in for a month. I was counting the days, he said, but after a month, I realized it was stupid. He explained. Since the beginning of the war, drones have drastically changed how combat is waged. As Russian drones swarm the sky with increasing density and lethality, these parallel processes, the failure to fill Ukraine's brigades with fit and motivated foot soldiers, and the increasing misery of conditions on the front line, augment one another and bring about not only large holes in the Ukrainian defense. The Kiev Independent wrote after conducting interviews with dozens of soldiers and commanders in infantry divisions. Estimates of the number of soldiers killed on both sides of the conflict vary widely. However, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers continue to die in large numbers as the politicians drag their feet in negotiating a solution. Isn't that how it is? It's always the politicians. They're not out there fighting, right? They're wearing suits. And they're telling other people to fight. So speaking of that, of Ukraine there and China, Trump tells Europe to put economic pressure on China over Ukraine. It looks like he just farted, doesn't it? This yellow gas over here. Probably did. Trumpy urged European countries yesterday to put economic pressure on China because of its support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, the White House said, speaking by video conference with European leaders gathered in Paris, Trump also said Europe must stop purchasing Russian oil that is funding the war, a senior White House official told AFP on condition of anonymity. But they need oil because, you know, that's how you heat shit over there, Trumpy. They don't have central air and heat like you do. Ukraine's President Zelensky, who also took part in the meeting, said earlier that Trump is very dissatisfied with European purchases of Russian oil, saying the buyers were Hungary and Slovakia. Hungary, sorry. I said Hungary. Zelensky also said he discussed sanctions on Russia and protecting Ukraine's airspace in the call that he and European leaders held with Trump. Trump, whose efforts to mediate between Russia and Ukraine have failed to produce a breakthrough, has been tight-lipped on what his next move will be as he seeks an end to the war. The U.S. has already decided to impose sanctions on India as punishment for buying Russian oil. Trump so far has not done this with China, which imports a lot of Russian oil and is holding trade talks with Washington. Trump has been talking tough of late about China, however. On Tuesday, he accused Chinese President Xi Jinping of conspiring against the U.S. with Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un when the three gathered in Beijing to watch a big military parade commemorating the end of World War II. Talk about paranoia. Paranoia will destroy ya. Little Kinks action for you. This weather around here has been really affecting my sinuses. So if I get a little snotty, I apologize. How's everybody doing out there? We doing good? Orange whip, orange whip, orange whip. We good? All right. U.S. Appeals Court blocks order to shut down alligator Alcatraz. Let's go to the U.S. Let's go to Florida where all the wild shit happens. 2 judges appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit by Trumpy issued a Thursday decision that allows a newly established but already notorious immigrant detention center in Florida, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, to stay open. Friends of the Everglades, the Center for Biological Diversity, and the Miccosukee tribe, I hope I said that right, tribe of Indians of Florida sought to halt the unlawful construction of the site. Last month, Judge Kathleen Williams, appointed by Obama to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida, ordered the closure of the facility within 60 days. However, yesterday, circuit judges Elizabeth Branch and Barbara Lagoa blocked Williams' decision, concluding that the balance of the harms and our consideration of the public interest favor a stay on the preliminary injunction. In other words, they got their marching orders. Judge Adalberto Jordan, an Obama appointee, issued a brief but scathing dissent. He wrote that the majority essentially ignores the burden borne by the defendants, pays only lip service to the abuse of discretion standard, engages in its own fact-finding, declines to consider the district court's determination on irreparable harm, and performs its own balancing of the equities. I once balanced my equities, and boy, that was not a good idea. The 11th Circuit's ruling was cheered by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Republican Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier. That sounds very Nazi-ish. I'm sorry, very German. And Governor Ron DeSantis, who declared in a video that Alligator Alcatraz is, in fact, like we've always said, open for business. Y'all coming down here. Uthmeier's communications director, Jerry Redfern, collected responses to the initial ruling by state and federal Democrats and urged them to weigh in on social media. Yeah. Wait, what about the strongly worded letter? Let's get one of those in there for good measure. Talk to Bernie about that. He knows what those are. Florida State Senator Chev Jones did, stressing that cruelty is still cruelty. This is from Chev. The update is simple. Cruelty is still cruelty. No matter how many courts the governor runs to, Alligator Alcatraz remains an unlawful, dangerous stunt that wastes taxpayer dollars and tramples on human dignity. That hasn't changed, and neither has my stance. In a statement yesterday, Florida Immigrant Coalition Deputy Director Renata Bozzetto said that the 11th Circuit is allowing atrocities to happen by reversing the injunction that helped to paralyze something that has been functioning as an extrajudicial site in our own state. The Everglades detention camp isn't just an environmental threat. It's also a huge human rights crisis. Well, yeah, and it's probably illegal as hell, too. Housing thousands of men in tents in the middle of a fragile ecosystem puts immense strain on Florida's source environment. But even more troublesome, it disregards human rights and our constitutional commitments, Bozzetto continued. This is a place where hundreds of our neighbors were legally held, were made invisible within government systems, and were subjected to inhumane heat and unbearable treatment. The fact that a facility embedded in so much pain is allowed to reopen is absolutely disheartening. The only just solution is to shut the facility down and ensure that no facility like this opens in our state. Lastly, it is imperative that we as a nation uphold the balance of powers that this country was founded on, she added. This is what makes this country special. More like special needs at this point. Calling judges who rule against you activists flies in the face of our democracy. It's a huge tell that Attorney General Uthmeier expressed this as a win for President Trump's agenda, as if the courts were to serve as political weapons. Well, they do now. This demonstrates the clear partisan games they are playing with people's lives and with our democracy. Well, Alligator Alcatraz, well, and let's be fair, Democrats have used the courts to keep third parties off of voter rolls too. So they can talk about partisan games because they sure know how to play them themselves. What happened? While Alligator Alcatraz has drawn widespread criticism for the conditions in which detainees are held, the suit is based on the government's failure to follow a law that requires an environmental review, given the facility's proximity to surrounding wetlands. They say, fuck your wetlands. In response to the ruling, Elise Bennett, a senior attorney at the Center for Biological Diversity, told the AP that this is a heartbreaking blow to America's Everglades and every living creature there, but the case isn't even close to over. And don't forget the people, too, because, there's people down there, not just critters, right? Yeah. So here we go. Labor Day sniffing, hot shoe. Come on. We point our attention towards Venezuela. We'll get to the old boat blowing up shit here coming up in just a second. U.S. to end temporary protected status for Venezuelans this fall. Surprise, surprise, surprise. The U.S. will end a program this fall that has allowed Venezuelans to live and work in the country without fear of deportation, the Department of Homeland Security announced Wednesday in a statement. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem tried to say something, but then, I don't know. She didn't know how to say it. Said temporary protected status, or TPS. Those TPS reports, you didn't put a cover on those TPS reports. For Venezuelans designated in 2021 during the Biden administration will formally end on September 10th, which is 5 days from now. The termination becomes effective 60 days after publication in the Federal Register. TPS is a designation that allows people from countries facing armed conflict, natural disasters, or other extraordinary conditions to remain temporarily in the U.S. According to a December report by the Congressional Research Service, more than 250,000 Venezuelans have received protections under the 2021 designation. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USIS, that's funny. Spokesperson Matthew Tragesser said continuing the program would undermine the Trump administration's efforts to secure our southern border, citing concerns about irregular migration, national security, and foreign policy. The DHS said Venezuelans who depart will be able to use a mobile app to register their exit and receive a free flight, a $1,000 stipend, and what is described as potential future opportunities in legal immigration. They also get those Ginsu steak knives, too. Ooh, everybody likes those. Meanwhile, in the boat strike, Trump repurposes war on terror for Latin American crime. There we go. I swear to God, I never saw anything like this on Miami Vice. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do the audio, so I just want to see the boat. Let's show the boat. Where's the boat? Here we go. So they said, boom, 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 boom. They blew up what they thought was a drug boat. Look at this guy. This guy looks like a drug boat. Aquaman. Of course they got Aquaman because it's something in the water. Sorry, I digress. In the days following the deadly attack on a vessel allegedly transporting Venezuelan drug smugglers through international waters, the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump sent a unified message. The U.S. will break the law anytime we want. I'm sorry, the U.S. will not hesitate to strike so-called narco-terrorists. Instead of interdicting the vessel on the president's orders, we blew it up, said Aquaman, shooting circles out of his head at it, and got some dolphins to, get some dynamite and put it in the boat. And it'll happen again. Maybe it's happening right now, he said. Analysts say this new strategy represents a major escalation in how the U.S. approaches Latin American criminal organizations, one that relies on the public signaling and dubious legal practices that undergirded U.S. attacks across the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia as part of the so-called global war on terror. But this is a crossover episode. So you got the global war on terror, but you also got the war on drugs too, right? I want to think the war on cavities is in there, but I doubt that's in there. With little indication that the Republican-dominated U.S. Congress will be willing to check Trump's approach, observers warn that Tuesday's kinetic strike that killed 11 alleged members of Venezuela-based Tren de Aragua gang could open a new phase and theater for extrajudicial military killings. Pardon me. They are repurposing the war on terror for entirely new sets of supposed enemies in a way that is radically inappropriate. Brian Finucane, a senior advisor for the U.S. program at the International Crisis Group, told Al Jazeera, now the supposed terrorists are in our own backyard in the Caribbean, and now they say they're drug smugglers. Sonny Crockett shit. Sonny Crockett shit. I used to love Miami Vice when it came on. I remember when it came on back in the day. On Friday nights, man, you turn off the lights and watch it, cool music. The public messaging campaign stretches back to Trump's first term when he pondered bombing drug labs in Mexico, a pugilistic approach to Latin American cartels embraced by some segments of the Republican Party, of course. What, bomb something? What? Twist my arm. Shortly after Trump took office this year, his administration moved to formalize its rhetoric, designating several Latin American-based cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. The label increases penalties for collaborators and legal mechanisms to sanction and boost surveillance for designated groups, but does not on its own afford greater presidential power to take unilateral military action. Finucane I don't know how you say that name, say Tuesday's strike as the latest drive in a campaign to shift public perception of Latin American criminal gangs from profit-driven criminal entities to coordinated foreign actors seeking to destabilize the U.S. In a message that dovetails with Trump's portrayal of migrants traveling to the U.S. as violent criminals, which has further underpinned his domestic deployment of federal agents across the country, Finucane described the U.S. strike as performative and gratuitous use of military power. For decades, the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard worked together on interdicting vessels, stopping them at sea, taking the purported smugglers into custody, and prosecuting them through law enforcement channels. Now we just blow the fuckers up in the water. That's what we do. There's no indication of why that wasn't possible here, so the blowing up of this vessel was entirely unnecessary. It was also literally performed in the sense that Trump posted on Truth Social a video of the attack, essentially a snuff film. For its part, the U.S. administration has offered few details on why the military used deadly force beyond blatantly pointing to the message it sends to drug smugglers. Speaking on Fox News on Wednesday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that the Tren de Aragua was seeking to poison the U.S. with drugs. We already got poisonous drugs here. It's called pharmaceuticals. It won't stop with just this strike. Anyone else trafficking in those waters who we know is a designated narco-terrorist will face the same fate. See, that's how they do it. They can't get them as drug dealers, so they call them terrorists. And because it's the war on terror, they don't have to use Congress. And that's why the Patriot Act is evil as fuck. He maintained that the Trump administration was certain of the identities of those on board the attacked vessel without providing further details of the strike. In other words, he don't know who was on that fucking boat. Peace, Dove. Peace, Dove. What's up? Good to see you. Aquaman, speaking during his visit to Mexico, said simply that stopping and arresting drug smugglers, known as interdiction, has proven ineffective. He said the targeted smuggling boat was headed to Trinidad and Tobago, with the drugs likely bound for the U.S. Again, no proof. What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them, Aquaman said. Boop, 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 boop. Trump, speaking from the White House on Wednesday, said that there were massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people, and everybody fully understands that. Alleged gang members may not be the only intended audience, according to Nathan Jones, a non-resident scholar in drug policy and Mexico studies at the Baker Institute for Public Policy in Houston, Texas. That was my old job. I think the signaling may be more important to governments in the region, particularly the Mexican government, said Jones, noting that Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has sought to strike a careful balance between cooperating with the Trump administration and protecting her country's sovereignty. Following reports that Trump had authorized the military to target certain Latin American cartels in August, Sheinbaum said that any U.S. invasion was off the table. A day after the strike, Aquaman visited Sheinbaum in Mexico, with the pair agreeing to boost cooperation to target cartels. They don't want those types of U.S. military kinetic operations happening on their sovereign territory, Jones said. I don't blame them. So they're going to be taking affirmative steps, certainly symbolically, to show the Trump administration they're doing everything we can on this. I like it symbolically. They're like, yeah, Trump, we got this. And then they don't do anything, you know. Meanwhile, Trump's administration has not yet elucidated its justification for the strike under domestic U.S. law. Any legal authority remains at best extremely murky, an analyst said. Throughout the global war on terror, U.S. presidents have relied on a mix of executive power and congressional actions to justify often tenuously strikes on targets outside of active conflict zones. Oh, you mean like Obama when he ordered civilians killed? Under the U.S. Constitution, only Congress can declare war, but presidents can unilaterally take some military actions prior to receiving congressional approval. The limits of those actions have been heavily debated. Many of the aerial attacks and drone campaigns that defined the past 2 decades relied on the so-called Authorization for Use of Military Force, or AUMF, passed by Congress in 2001, which gives the president authority to use all necessary and appropriate force against entities and individuals behind the September 11, 2001 attacks. Everybody knows that's some bullshit, too. Even under the widest interpretation of the legislation, it would not apply to Tren de Aragua, which the Trump administration has dubiously claimed is directly aligned with the government of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro or other criminal gangs. Yeah, this is just all to intimidate Venezuela, and probably by, as a byproduct, Mexico too. The U.S. president's constitutional war powers, meanwhile, typically apply only to alleged combatants, not alleged criminals. The international crisis group's Finucane explained, being a drug smuggler by itself does not render you a combatant or an enemy fighter, Finucane said. And if they don't fall into that category for law of war purposes, then they're civilians, and the intentional targeting of civilians is a war crime. So if they're talking about taking these guys out because they're bringing drugs to America, we already got drugs here. Like I said, we got pharmaceuticals, but we're not going after those bastards that are killing people in the opioid crisis. Presidential war powers also require reporting to Congress and intelligence briefings related to underlying justifications. Congress can then pass legislation to rein in the president's actions, but to date, many top Republicans have so far just rolled over, indicated little appetite to do so. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was right the first time. Instead, they have leaned into Trump's rhetoric, with Senate Committee on Foreign Relations Chairman Jim Risch on Tuesday praising what he called Trump's decisive action towards these criminals. Senator Tom Cotton, echoes Trump's language in his praise, hailing the strike against terrorists. Democrats have in turn been relatively muted in their response, although the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee has called for the administration to brief Congress immediately and spell out its legal justification, if they have one, for the strike. Come on, guys. You can't do that. I'll give you a little beep. All told, the Trump administration appears to be trying to normalize something that is illegal, according to Adam Isaacson, the Director of Defense Oversight at the Washington Office on Latin America, WOLA. your favorite in Chicago. That carries several risks, including dangers for civilians such as fishermen and migrants who travel in international waters. It also raises the specter of strikes on sovereign territory or regional escalation. This is turning up the heat on the frog in hot water and making it a few degrees hotter, and seeing how many members of the Republican leadership go along with it, Isaacson said. It appears they're getting them to be okay with this and getting them on record being okay with this so that they can then escalate, right? There's always just some sort of legal thing. They're just like, oh, well, you can't blow up people in international waters if they're just regular ass people. Oh, well, then you're terrorists. Oh, well, then why didn't you say so? Motherfuckers. Here we go. And Ecuador's getting in on the fun. Well, not the fun, but the other side of the fun, as U.S. adds 2 Ecuadorian gangs to the list of narco-terrorist organizations. This is from Kyle Anselm. Been doing a lot of antiwar.com today and some Libertarian Institute. Be sure you're checking out those sites. Very good journalism going on over there, and their aggregation of news. It really helps me out with this show, too. So, very big fan of those guys. So, Aquaman has designated Los Choneros and Los Lobos. Los Lobos? The band? I think those are different. Lobos as terrorist organizations after meeting with the Ecuadorian president. Trump claimed a boat near Venezuela that was attacked by the U.S. military was operated by a cartel on the narco-terrorism list. Narco-terrorism, here we go. A State Department press release yesterday explained today Rubio announced the designations of Los Choneros and Los Lobos as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, and specially designated global terrorists, the SDGTs. The announcement followed a meeting between Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa Azin and Rubio. Azin embraced the prospect of the U.S. taking action against the designated gangs. Los Choneros and Los Lobos can keep believing that no one touches them, he wrote on the Twitters following the meeting. But the reality is different. They have been declared terrorist groups by the U.S., and with their support, we will remain firm in our fight to recover our country. What kind of a cuck leader do you have to be to, like, come on, U.S., blow up our drug dealers, please? About a dozen Latin American cartels have been placed on terrorism lists. Trump has authorized the military to conduct lethal attacks against the gangs. Trump said only deadly drugs. Tuesday, Trump ordered the military to strike a boat near Venezuela. We told you that. He alleges the vessel was operated by a narco-terrorist group. Of course, he didn't have any proof of that, and the strike killed 11 people. Reports say the Department of Defense is preparing to carry out raids and strikes in Mexico and Venezuela. Mexico City and Caracas have expressed opposition to the U.S. conducting military operations within their borders, particularly Venezuela. They're like, no, don't you fucking come here. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has mobilized millions of militia troops and is threatening a bloody war if the U.S. invades. A White House official speaking with Axios said that the administration was considering a regime change operation similar to the 1989 invasion of Panama. Panama. Boom. This was a musical story. You had Los Lobos and you had Panama. Dun, 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 Panama. Sorry. I like music. So the Epstein victims are basically tired of the government, and they're stalling on trying to release the list of people that are the client list, as I should say. As Epstein victims urged U.S. Congress to pass bill requiring release of documents. So this was attended by victims and members of the House. Victims of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein demanded on Wednesday that the U.S. Congress pass legislation forcing the release of all unclassified records related to the disgraced financier held by President Donald Trump's administration. This is about ending secrecy wherever abuse of power takes root, said Anuska De Giorgio, a former model and actress who was one of about 10 self-described Epstein victims who spoke about her experience at a press conference outside the U.S. Capitol. The only reason that I am here is because it feels like the people that matter in this country finally care what we have to say. Maybe, said Marina Lacerda, an immigrant from Brazil who met Epstein when she was 14 after a friend told her she could make hundreds of dollars for massaging an older man. That should have been your red flag. That should have been all the red flags right there. The women said they supported a legislation in the House of Representatives called the Epstein Files Transparency Bill, requiring the release of records, including those by the FBI and U.S. attorney's offices. But Dan Bongino or Chef Boyardee, whatever the fuck his name is, like, what? There's no list. Ain't no list anywhere. We tried to find the list. I want the list. Lying motherfucker. Survivors need protection, resources, and legal support. If this Congress is serious about justice, which they're not, then let this moment also affirm your commitment to provide victims with the legal aid they need, DeGiorgio said at a press conference organized by Republican Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky and Democrat Ro Khanna out of California, who are trying to force a vote on the bill. Oh, they're trying to force a vote. Look, there it is. It's the drinking game. Force the vote. House Republican leaders are trying to head off a potentially difficult debate for their rank and file members on that legislation, which Trump said would provide no significant new revelations on the long-running criminal case. Not to say here, come on, yes. Thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax. Trump said in a White House Oval Office appearance on Wednesday, survivors stressed that their stories are real. The controversy over the Department of Justice withholding Epstein files has dogged Trump through much of this summer, with some of his core supporters demanding the release. Yep, shouldn't have pissed off your people there, Trumpy. House Speaker Mike Johnson has sought a different route that simply offers a vote on a resolution backing an Epstein investigation already underway by a House panel. Massey called that the oldest trick in the swamp. When you want to kill an issue, you introduce a placebo, a different bill that does nothing, and then you try to pull the wool over the eyes of the American people, he said. That's not going to happen this time. Late Tuesday, a Republican-controlled House panel released more than 33,000 pages of files on Epstein, a convicted sex offender who committed suicide, allegedly, in 2019 while being held in jail. Massey and Khanna are seeking far broader information. They're attempting to force House votes on their legislation by employing a complicated and often unsuccessful House procedure known as a discharge petition. At least 218 House members' signatures would be needed to force the vote. So if all 212 House Democrats back the measure, Massey would need to persuade 5 fellow Republicans to join him. As of Wednesday, he had the backing of 3 Representatives Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Boy, that's a threesome right there. House Republican leadership has argued that the discharge petition effort is moot, given the large number of documents that were made public. If the Massey-Khanna effort were to succeed in getting at least 218 backers, it would be a test of Johnson's leadership and Trump's sway over whether enough Republicans would actually break ranks and vote to pass the legislation in the deeply split House. And just kind of adding on to that, too, 2 things that one thing Massey and Khanna were talking about was just having a floor speech where they would just release the names during the floor speech, because apparently the victims want to release the names themselves, right? They're like, we're tired of waiting on the government. We're going to get together and release the names ourselves. And so the Massey and Khanna, now you could take this any way you want, but they replied like, look, if you do that, you're going to get sued like to the teeth by these people. If we release the names during a floor debate, apparently what you say in the floor debate you can't be sued for saying it, right? Which I don't understand how that works, but they may go that route as well. I don't know. I think it just seems like smoke and mirrors. Maybe I've just been burned too much. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I've said this before and I'll say it again. The powers that be are not going to let those names get out. They're not going to let the victims do it. They're not going to let these people do floor debates with these lists either. So once again, I'll believe it when I see it. And, you know, my eyesight isn't that good, so we'll see. Let's turn our attention to hurricanes that's going on over there in the Pacific. What? You thought it would be like the Atlantic, but that Pacific's hot as hell. So we got two here. We got Hurricane Kiko currently far east of Hawaii, rapidly intensified to a Category 4 hurricane on Wednesday. It will weaken substantially, but it could pass close to the island chain this coming week. While Hurricane Kiko it's probably less than 1,300 miles southeast of Hawaii. The storm's cone now includes much of the island chain. The storm could pass near Hawaii early next week, so those on the islands should continue to monitor this closely for any potential impacts. Kiko rapidly intensified from a tropical storm on Monday into a Cat 4 hurricane on Wednesday. The storm is moving through a region with warm water and low wind shear for the next couple of days, so a little more strengthening is possible through Friday morning. Kiko is traveling generally westward, but will be slowly gaining latitude through the early next week. I guess that means it'll be heading more northerly. While Kiko is expected to begin weakening this weekend, the storm will likely remain hurricane strength at least through then. Swells generated by Kiko could begin to reach Hawaii towards the end of the weekend, causing potentially life-threatening surf and rip currents. They just were dealing with a tsunami, like a few weeks ago with that earthquake in Japan. Although I don't think they sustained any damage from that. They were prepared for it. As of now, it's too early to know what other impacts, if any, there will be on the Hawaiian Islands. However, it's important to keep a close eye on the forecast, especially now that many of the islands are included in the cone of uncertainty from the NHC. I used to work at the cone of uncertainty. It was a very questionable job. Most model guidance suggests that Kiko could pass near the islands beginning as soon as Tuesday as a tropical storm or low-end hurricane. The distance of Kiko's center track from the islands will determine its level of impact. Whether the track is far enough from the islands to avoid most impacts other than high surf and bands of showers, or if the track could bring the core of Kiko's strong winds and heavier rain over at least parts of the island chain is not known yet. Yeah, it depends on how big it is. Even if Kiko makes a close brush with the Hawaiian Islands, some environmental factors should weaken its strength before it gets there. The closer the storm gets to the Hawaiian Islands, the more wind shear it will encounter. This will most likely cause the storm to weaken as it approaches the islands. Kiko's sea surface temperature. Kiko's forecast track will bring it over somewhat cooler ocean water starting Sunday. This could also help the storm lose some intensity. There will also be a pocket of dry air to the east of the islands as Kiko is making an approach. Dry air also contributes to storms weakening. With several days ago, there is still uncertainty in the track and intensity forecast, so it's important to stay informed and check back frequently on our updates on Hurricane Kiko. And yeah, we'll keep an eye on it as well, too. And then you have Lorena, which is now a tropical storm. Soaks northwestern Mexico, but rainfall in the American Southwest is becoming less certain. Look at that. That's on Baja.
No landfall from Hurricane Lorraine.
So that's just some muddy shit right there. Hurricane Lorena causes flooding in Mexico. Lorena may never make landfall, and with the recent updates, the Southwest looks to miss out on any drought-denting rainfall as the system curves away from Mexico and the United States. But what it's doing is, hello, you just popped up there. A lot of the storms and stuff are causing what they call dry lightning strikes in California, and that's setting off a lot of forest fires there. It may never make landfall. With the recent updates, the Southwest looks to miss out on any drought-denting rainfall as the system curves away from Mexico and the U.S. And we'll get to where it is here in just a second as we go to zoom.earth. I tell you, Zoom.earth is probably, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I love using Zoom.earth to track these hurricanes like this. So this one is Kiko. You see Kiko right here. Right now, Kiko is a Category 3 with sustained winds of at least 115 miles per hour. It's going to be making this track here. So it's going west-northwest, and eventually it's going to make its way here. They think by, Tuesday? And like I said, depending on how big it is, if it hits that cool water and those sheer winds like that to knock down the intensity of it, you may not have to worry about too much storm surge if you're over there in Hawaii. Meanwhile, we're going to check in on Lorena here. And like I said, she's still at it's a post-tropical storm now. So it's like at 35 miles per hour. And it looks like it's going to be heading out to the west as well. But, it depends. If this hits like more warm water or warmer water out there, that's when it's going to be bad. We could pay off the national debt if the names on the list paid to get off. Oh, giggity. Giggity goo, giggity schmoigen. The hell? So apparently Iran and Australia are getting into it. And of course, it's if Iran's, getting into it, that means, there's some sort of anti-Semitic bullshit. And you know what that means? Propaganda.
Sharing of biased and false
News has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media are true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Hello. Iran expels Australian ambassador, downgrades ties with Canberra. Oops. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai confirmed on yesterday that Australia's ambassador has left Tehran, announcing a reciprocal reduction in diplomatic presence after Canberra expelled Iran's envoy. You're like, what's Canberra? I think that's the capital of Australia, maybe. Baghai said the decision was made in accordance with diplomatic norms and stressed that Tehran viewed Australia's actions as baseless. We do not welcome the downgrading of diplomatic relations, as we believe there is no justification for such a move. It negatively affects the ties between the two nations, he told reporters. Baghai underlined that Iran's consular section in Canberra remains open to serve nationals despite restrictions imposed on the embassy. Despite the restrictions imposed on the embassy, I love that they just said it, that they got the quote. We're making efforts to provide necessary consular services to Iranian citizens residing in Australia. He also categorically dismissed allegations of anti-Semitism. That tool of the propagandists, rejecting Canberra's claims on politically motivated. On August 26th, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced the expulsion of Iranian ambassador to Australia, Ahmad Sadeghi, accusing Tehran of directing arson attacks against a kosher food company in Sydney on October last year and a synagogue in Melbourne 2 months later. Albanese described the incidents as extraordinary and dangerous acts of aggression orchestrated by a foreign nation on Australian soil. Throw another shrimp on the baby. According to the Australian Security Intelligence Organization, or ASIO, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, was behind the attacks, allegedly using criminal networks as intermediaries. ASIO Chief Mike Burgess said the IRGC had directed, quote, people who are criminals and members of organized crime gangs to do their bidding. Police arrested one suspect over the Sydney fire and two more linked to the Melbourne attack. Foreign Minister Penny Wong said that it was the first time since World War II that Canberra has expelled an ambassador. She confirmed that Australia's embassy in Tehran had been closed with its diplomats withdrawn. Albany's further pledged to push legislation designating the IRGC as a terrorist organization, aligning with the U.S. and Canada. Tehran rejected the charges, with Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi calling Albanese a weak politician in a post on the Twitters, adding that Iran is paying the price for the Australian people's support for Palestine. Indeed. Meanwhile, U.S. considers banning Iranians from shopping at Costco during the UN meeting. Oh boy. The Trump administration already has denied visas for Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. As we told you about that, and his large delegation to attend a high-level UN meeting this month, and is now considering ramping up restrictions on several other delegations that would severely limit their ability to travel outside New York City. Potential travel and other restrictions could soon be imposed on the delegations from Iran, Sudan, Zimbabwe, and perhaps surprisingly Brazil, which has held a traditional place of honor during the high-level leaders gathering at the UN General Assembly. That's going to begin on September 22nd, according to an internal State Department memo seen by the AP. While the potential restrictions are still under consideration and the circumstances could change, the proposals would be another step in the Trump administration's crackdown on visas, including a wide-ranging review of those already holding legal permissions to come to the U.S. and those seeking entry to head to the UN meeting. I don't know why okay. The movements of Iranian diplomats are severely limited in New York, but one proposal being floated would bar them from shopping at big members-only wholesale stores like Costco and Sam's Club without first receiving the express permission or the express written consent of Major League Baseball or the State Department. Can't go to Costco. Okay. All right. Well. But you can go to Aldi's. Go to Aldi's, because Aldi's got some good prices, too. That's a plug. I'll plug them. I don't care if they're owned by Nazis. There's some. You will not see prices any lower anywhere else. Sorry. Too soon. Meanwhile, in England doing England things, as campaigners challenging Palestine action ban face 42 terrorism charges. Really? 6 campaigners seeking to lift the UK government's ban on direct action group Palestine Action have been charged with terrorism offenses for allegedly expressing support for the now proscribed organization. Defend Our Juries, DOJ, said on Tuesday that 6 of their key spokespeople had been rounded up in dawn raids hours before a scheduled news conference announcing that a mass action to challenge the ban would be going ahead this Saturday. The police said the 6 people were charged as part of an investigation led by the Counterterrorism Command in relation to their allegedly coordinating protests and 13 Zoom calls in support of Palestine Action. Oh, those Zoom calls. The protests they didn't care about, but the Zoom calls, oh no, that's a river too far. Wait, a bridge too far? A river? Anyway, you know the thing. The spokespeople, including former government lawyer Tim Crossland, were held over the custody time limit of 24 hours and had their homes raided, according to DOJ. They said that during a hearing at Westminster Magistrates Court on Thursday, the judge granted the defendants bail, rejecting a request by Crown Prosecution Services, the British Nazis, or the British... what do they call them? The Gestapo, to hold them on remand. The group said the activists could have faced 18 months imprisonment due to court backlogs if they had been refused bail. Defendants face a mixture of charges under Section 12, Section 2, and 12, Section 3 under the Terrorism Act. Section 12.2 makes it an offense to arrange a meeting in support of a proscribed organization, and 12.3 criminalizes addressing a meeting with the intention of encouraging support for a proscribed organization. The group faces a total of 42 charges between them. According to the DOJ, their bail conditions stipulate that they will observe a tagged curfew between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. They are also barred from contacting their co-defendants and from participating directly or indirectly in support for Palestine action. We welcome the release of our key spokespeople and the judge's decision to reject the CPS's absurd attempt to remand them in prison for what could have been many months, a DOJ spokesperson said. However, the fact that they are now facing 42 charges between 6 of them and extraordinary draconian bail conditions for hosting public Zoom calls is nothing short of a scandal. Fucking ridiculous, too. The arrests come after the Department of Justice announced its biggest ever day. The Department of Justice, I'm sorry. What is it called again? What was this shit? Damn, my brain sucks. You know the thing. What was it called? God damn it, I just saw Defend Our Juries. I'm sorry. And now I lost where I was. The arrests come after Defend Our Juries announced its biggest ever day of defiance against the Palestine action ban on September 6th, which is tomorrow, in which an estimated 1,500 participants have pledged to risk arrest under the Terrorism Act for holding signs reading, "I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action." Some ridiculous shit over there. The UK government proscribed Palestine action under anti-terror laws on July 4th, following an incident in which members broke into RAF Brize Norton and attacked with paint and crowbars 2 planes they said were used for military operations in Gaza across the Middle East. The designation puts Palestine action on par with Al-Qaeda, which is ironic because that's and the Islamic State, which are both CIA constructions under British law, making it a criminal offense to show support or invite support for the group, punishable by up to 14 years in prison under the Terrorism Act. That's all they got to do. They just got to call you. They just got to deem you a terrorist, and then they can arrest you or they can blow up your boat, even though you may not actually be a terrorist per se. Oh, we're back to Aquaman. U.S. told other countries Palestinian recognition will create more problems. It means their girlfriend Israel's going to bitch at him. Man, he just looks ragged. He looks like, I don't know. He looks like somebody tried to dehydrate him or something. You know, making jerky. Aquaman jerky. The U.S. has told other countries that recognition of a Palestinian state will cause more problems. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Aquaman said yesterday, we told all these countries, we told them all. We said if you guys do this recognition stuff, it's all fake. It's not even real. If you do it, you're going to create problems, Rubio said from Quito, where he met with President Daniel Noboa and his Ecuadorian counterpart. There's going to be a response. It's going to make it harder to get a ceasefire, and it may even trigger those sorts of actions that you've seen, or at least these attempts at these actions, Aquaman said, adding he would not opine on Israeli discussion of annexation of the West Bank, but that it was not final. So more shit saying Palestinian. You don't want to do that, bro. You don't want to do that. That's going to cause some shit. EU pushed for censorship of a website naming pro-genocide lobbyists. This nice lady here, she looks like the Elizabeth Warren of the EU. A prominent European Union official pushed for the censorship of a website which published facts about how professional lobbyists have been seeking to drum up support for Gaza genocide. Genocide Joe. Launched a few months ago, the website in question contained downloadable posters featuring pro-Israel advocates and some details about the stances they have taken. The posters have appeared at various locations in Brussels during June. Following a Freedom of Information request, apparently this person, David Cronin, he says you say we. We learned that Katharina von Katarina von Schnurbein, the EU's coordinator for combating anti-Semitism, head propagandist and head censor person, urged that the city's police make the website named Lobby Against, quote, inaccessible to internet users. Nearly 2 weeks after the posters were first spotted on Brussels streets, the Lobby Against website is still not shut down, an internal EU paper states. The paper cites assurances from the Belgian authorities that the website is now accessible via most networks. The authorities, it adds, have run into technical issues. Technical issues, indeed. The posters on the website showed lobbyists including Mathis Schussler from the European Leadership Network, Benedetta Buttiglione from the American Jewish Committee, and Alex Benjamin from the European Jewish Association. Each poster used the slogan, "He lobbies for genocide" or "She lobbies for genocide," along with other factual observations. Among them were comments on how the lobbyists picture organized propaganda trips for lawmakers, promote trading in arms between Europe and Israel, and weaponize anti-Semitism to fuel racist discourse about refugees and Palestinians. None of the posters threatened violence. The comments found on them related to the activities of Israel and its support network. They did not express any hostility toward Jews based on the religious or ethnicity. And who is this? Is this Electronic Antifada? Yeah, it is. Great website here. I like these guys. Let's see. Each poster used the slogan, "He lobbies for..." Okay, we already said that. The comments found on them related to the activities of Israel and its support network. The internal EU paper even acknowledges that some of the lobbyists featured in the posters are not even Jewish. And yet the posters were denounced at a high level within the Brussels bureaucracy. Magnus Brunner. Magnus, what a great name. The EU Commissioner for Internal Affairs and Migration held a discussion with representatives of pro-Israel groups on June 26th. The aforementioned internal paper states that in his opening remarks, Brunner described the poster campaigns as outrageous and an evil act. Evil act? What? The internal paper notes that 2 Israeli diplomats were killed in Washington during May. The killings took place outside an event hosted by the American Jewish Committee. That was the guy who shot him and then said "Free Palestine," and it looked like an obvious op. Pointing to an incident on the other side of the Atlantic is a flimsy excuse for muzzling dissent in Europe. It is, however, typical that the EU's supposed warriors against anti-Semitism, led by Katharina von Schnurbein, would resort to such arguments. Since taking up her post a decade ago, von Schnurbein has repeatedly smeared initiatives undertaken in solidarity with Palestinians. In May, von Schnurbein visited Tel Aviv, where she had an exchange of views with diplomats working there. As EU Observer has revealed, von Schnurbein, wait a minute, it was Schnurbein, then would she lose the N? I think they got tired of typing her name. Made the absurd accusation that a bake sale held by her fellow Brussels officials to benefit a Red Cross Gaza appeal risked causing ambient anti-Semitism. Yes, those anti-Semitic bake sales, folks, they're out there. They're ready. On October 13th, 2023, Jewish Currents published an article by Raz Siegel, a scholar of the Holocaust and other genocides. He called the situation in Gaza a textbook case of genocide unfolding in front of our eyes. A few months later, the International Court of Justice deemed plausible South Africa's case that Israel is committing genocide, and if they would know about that and apartheid, they probably know about that. The evidence that a genocide is occurring has been accepted by all reputable human rights organizations and even some governments belonging to the European Union, such as Ireland, Spain, and Slovenia. This week, the International Association of Genocide Scholars adopted a resolution concluding that Israel's policies and actions in Gaza meet the legal definition of genocide. That definition, acts intended to destroy partly or completely a national, racial, or religious or ethnic group, has been enshrined in a 1948 UN convention. Genocide experts may agree almost unanimously that Israel's offensive against Gaza is genocidal, yet von Schnurbein, the end came back, has dismissed reports that Israel commits massacres in Gaza as rumors about Jews. That's like Mike Huckabee. He's the ambassador to Israel, and he said, genocide? What are you talking about? This is genocide. Bunch of lying motherfuckers. Given that she's denying hard facts, von Schnerbein's credibility ought to be in tatters. She has already harmed civil liberties by pushing for the censorship of the lobby against website. It is vital that she is removed from her post before she inflicts further damage. There you go. The electronic Antifada there for you. At the Venice audience left in tears during film about Gaza genocide victim Hind Rajab. So we'll get into the story of this here in just a second. A film about a 5-year-old Palestinian girl killed by Israeli soldiers in Gaza received a 23-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival on Wednesday. Directed by Tunisian filmmaker Kouther Ben Hania, the voice of Hind Rajab left much of the audience and cast in tears after the screening. Members of the audience also broke out into chants of Free Palestine after the screening. The docudrama, which was showing during the 82nd edition of the festival, tells the story of Hind, who fled Gaza City in a car with 6 of her family members in January last year, only to find their vehicle being shelled by Israeli tanks. Her uncle, aunt, and 3 cousins all died in the attack. Hind and another cousin who initially survived contacted the Palestine Red Crescent Society by phone to ask for help. A recording of that conversation was later made public. The child was heard pleading, "Please come, I am scared." Before medics could reach the children, Israeli soldiers resumed firing on the vehicle, killing them. An investigation by forensic architecture found that Israeli soldiers knew that there were children in the vehicle and that at least 335 bullets were fired at it. Last week, Hollywood stars Joaquin Phoenix and Brad Pitt joined a group of film industry figures putting their weight behind the movie. Pitt and Phoenix were joined as executive directors, probably executive producers, by Oscar-winning filmmaker Jonathan Glazer, Roma director Alfonso Cuarón, and actress Rooney Mara. Speaking about her film, Ben Hania said, "I cannot accept a world where a child calls for help and no one comes. That pain, that failure belongs to all of us." Hind Rajab's image has become symbolic of Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and the disproportionate toll it has taken on children. Yeah. So, and I think that's the only way you're going to. Well, one of the big things that you're going to be able to do is to go through cinema, right? I mean, that's the thing. These documentaries may be the only way to get to some of these shit libs, to get them to flip on their bullshit about Israel. I mean, you're starting to see some people come around. It's nice to see Brad Pitt and Joaquin Phoenix doing that, you know. But we need a hell of a lot more. We need much, much more than that. So, and finally, in our, what is this called? Propaganda Watch? I already forgot. We have, the sale of CBS News, but was it bought by the Israelis? Well, our buddy James Lee is going to tell us all about that.
CBS News, the house that Cronkite built, the home of 60 Minutes, for decades the gold standard of American journalism. And now its parent company, Paramount, newly taken over by Skydance Media, is about to drop $200 million on Barry Weiss's Substack blog, the free press. The official spin, legacy media trying to compete with the independents. But let's be real, this isn't about subscribers or revenue. It's about one thing, ideology, one in particular, Zionism. This is Israel making Paramount buy the free press so CBS News, their crown jewel, falls in line. Sounds crazy, I know, but I've got all the receipts, so let's get into it. First off, the free press. It's not a newsroom, it's not a cable network, it's a Substack. It's Bari Weiss's glorified blog, which she launched after she left the New York Times in a tiff about it being too liberal. Now, I will say she has, to her credit, successfully branded it as a, quote, independent media hub, but in reality, it's just a newsletter with a very specific mission: defending Israel.
What you're going to see is an entire region filled with something like 22 Arab and Muslim nations, and a Jewish state, the only Jewish state in the world, that is smaller than New Jersey. I think the thing that people fundamentally get wrong is that they think that this is a conflict fundamentally about borders. It is not a conflict about borders. It is a conflict about whether or not Israel has a right to exist.
Weiss is a proud Zionist. She's not shy about that. And her publication leans hard into that identity. So while Israel is starving Gaza, the Free Press worked overtime to publish famine denial, dressing it up as, quote, research and facts. It takes basically cherry-picked stats, gives them a pseudo-intellectual gloss, and then sells it to the public as the truth. That is the power of the Free Press. It doesn't look like propaganda. It looks kind of like data. It takes basically Israeli talking points and launders them through charts, think tank jargon, and contrarian independent voices, in quotations. And if we just take a look at who's bankrolling the enterprise, it's the who's who of pro-Israel VCs. You got Mark Andreessen, whose VC firm A16Z has been very public about ramping up investments in Israeli tech. There's also Howard Schultz, the Starbucks billionaire whose foundation pledged to, quote, help Israel heal and rebuild right after October 7th. And speaking of business, if we just take a look at this from a business transaction perspective, it makes absolutely no sense.
I don't care how many, Bari Weiss, whose company is, sold now, is going to sell to CBS for $3 trillion or something. Larry Ellison's son's buying the Free Press. The very important Free Press blog that is on Substack is worth $250 million. And I like Bari, but the one that gets like 7,500 views on YouTube, that powerhouse conglomerate media company is worth $250 million, by the way. So the Tim Dillon show's apparently worth $1 billion. Hello, Miriam?
Yeah, the Free Press, according to what they tell us, has about 155,000 subscribers. So maybe around $15 million a year in revenue. Certainly respectable for a blog, a Substack. But $200 million, that is 10 to 15 times revenue, an insane multiple that makes absolutely no sense, unless you're after something more than subscribers.
The point, though, in the Bari Weiss case is that it is entirely an intellectual sheen on pro-Israel and pro-Zionism. If you read about it, David Ellison and others are genuinely only want to buy the Free Press to support Israel. That's it.
Yeah, let's talk about the guy behind all of this, David Ellison. He's the Hollywood heir who runs Skydance, the company that just took over Paramount and by extension CBS News. But to understand him, you've got to look at his dad, Larry Ellison. Larry built Oracle, a company that literally started on a CIA contract, and today the company powers U.S. intelligence, the Pentagon, and plenty of spy agencies. And Larry isn't just another Silicon Valley billionaire, he's also one of the largest private donors to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, pouring millions of dollars into Friends of the IDF. He's also close buddies with Netanyahu and hosted Trump for a fundraiser at his Hawaiian estate. And that's why this deal matters, because Paramount's crown jewel isn't Nickelodeon or MTV, it is CBS News. It is the network, like I said, of Walter Cronkite with institutional investigative tentpoles like 60 Minutes. That is the real prize. They don't care about Bari Weiss's blog subscribers. What they're after is Bari Weiss's pseudo-intellectual sheen and her worldview installed inside of CBS. So that the next time CBS runs a story critical of Israel, like when they were instructed not to acknowledge Jerusalem as part of the country, or when they give platform to voices inconvenient for Israel, like Ta-Nehisi Coates. They want someone in the building, like a Barry Weiss, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Glenn Greenwald, quote, "The so-called free press is engaged in one of the most blatant campaigns of atrocity denials in years. That's why the Ellison family, now buying Paramount CBS, wants Barry Weiss in there, in service of a foreign government they are all desperate to protect and whitewash." So let's be clear, this was never about building Paramount into a stronger company. It's not about competing with Substack. This is all about proving loyalty to Israel. That's the play. It's not a media deal. It's tribute. It's insurance. It's a guarantee that the next time CBS 60 Minutes or the Nightly News questions Israel, there is someone inside to kill that story. So I'm going to say this point blank. Don't look at this as Paramount buying the free press. Look at it as Israel buying CBS News. That is it for me this week. Let me know what you think. Is this acquisition a business decision, or is there something else going on here? Sound off in the comment section below. If you want to support my reporting, my journalism, please take a second to like this video, share it with as many people as possible so more people can get the truth about what's really going on. Subscribe yourself if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell. It really helps us with the almighty algorithm gods. As always, thank you for your time. I'll see you in the next one.
We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. And the world is our stage.
This is Mossad's old office. Its motto from Proverbs 24:6 says in so many words, wage war through deception and trickery.
Yeah. Do everything through deception and trickery, apparently. Yeah, so James Lee, good stuff there. And so we have to watch out, you know. CBS was a kind of a pinnacle for journalism excellence at one point before people figured out what propaganda was. And then in recent times, not so much. So thank you, James, for that. So yeah, that's the end of the news block. Just want to remind everybody, where am I at? Oh, I the hell. Oh, okay. Did I do that? All right. So coming up today, we got, who is it? We got our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News. I believe around through 2 p.m. Eastern, maybe. He's noon on the West Coast, so do the math from there. And be sure to check out his GoFundMe down below. If you can donate to him, that would be great. You know, he lost his home in the LA fires, and anything you could do to help our friend here. He's a good guy. You know, he tries to do good things. He's got a good show and puts things out there for you. Trying to get the news out just like the rest of us are here. And coming up tomorrow night, hopefully we'll be able to do this. Last time we got dinged with technical issues from the internet company. Thanks for that, internet, you motherfuckers. So it's Saturday, tomorrow, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific time. It's The Secret Show with yours truly and funsies for everyone to enjoy if you're into that sort of thing. So come join us for that. I'll have the links to these. News stories right after the show for you. But finally today, folks, you know, I am a natural redhead. I could prove it, but then I would definitely get booted off of YouTube. But you know, us redheads, we get a lot of shit thrown at us, right? They say every freckle that a redhead has is somebody's soul that we stole. That part is true. We have stole a lot of souls, but we only steal the souls of people that make fun of us. So, but guess what? There's thousands of redheads celebrate their strands at a festival in the Netherlands. Yes, Gingers Unite. So if you're a ginger out there, I got your back. The southern Dutch city of Tilburg is seeing more color than usual this weekend as thousands of redheads, I believe this was last weekend that this happened, thousands of redheads from all over the world gathered in the Netherlands for a once-a-year festival to celebrate their flaming locks. Giggity, 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 gig. The 2025 edition of the Redhead Days festivals include music, food trucks, and workshops tailored to particular needs of redheads, from makeup explainers to skin cancer prevention. You know, we need that 5,000 SPF on our skins. Organizers expect the 3-day event to draw several thousand attendees from some 80 countries. Elunda Baker, a Dutch festival veteran of 15 years, played cards with a group of redheaded friends from across the world who met together every year at the festival. I came out of curiosity, mostly just to see what it would be like not to stand out in the crowd, said Baker, 29. It was really an interesting first experience, and I just keep coming because I met some really nice friends here. Dingo, what's up? You're right, just in time for the end of the show. Well, at least you get the kicker in. That's fine. Magician Daniel Hank traveled 6 hours from Germany to join the festivities, now proud to flaunt the hair that made him the target of bullying when he was younger. I think it's really easy to recognize me because there are not that many people with a red beard. There are not many guys with long red hair. Although the Kandahar giants in Afghanistan, they have long red hair too, and they're giant too. A lot of stepchilds getting beat at that event. Touche, my friend, touche. And at one point, I was a literal redheaded stepchild, but I only beat myself, and I'll just let you. I'll let you just sit on that for a while. So that's it for me. Like I said, Willie's got shows coming up next week. I think he's got some country boys coming on Tuesday night. Be sure you're checking out Around the World with D and Friends. All our friends here in this little spot, if I can point to it, right here. Make sure you're taking care of our friends, watching them, like, share, subscribe, share out their shows, and let's get more of these smaller channels up and running, right? Everybody's trying to get their voice out there. They're trying to affect the ether, as it were, trying to make things a little bit better, and so every little bit helps. And speaking of everything, every little bit helps. If you want to help this show, donation links are down below. You can become a Patreon member. We put your name and lights at the beginning of the show. You get that nice little jazz music, dude. You get to ride on the train there. It's nice, and it helps the show out a great deal. Helps me out a great deal. Now, of course, I appreciate anything you can do, even if you're just sharing out the links. That works as well, too. So I will see you tomorrow night at midnight Eastern and 9 p.m. Pacific time. This show, hopefully, will be back next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, and 8 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. I'm your host, Uncle Warren. Peace out, everybody. We'll see you when we see you. Peace!
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!